Okay, you ready to get to our next caller? I believe
Yeah.
this one is a UFO, if I'm remembering correctly. Jonathan, you're on with Katy and Ethan. Are you there?
Hi.
Jonathan, hey, how are y'all?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I'm good.
Was it a UFO?
No, we actually spoke earlier today on Facebook. I believe it was a post that to be white, it should be
this Jonathan. I remember now. How's it going?
It's going good, man. How are y'all?
I'm doing good. So to a little background on this, Katy, we had a disagreement which started out heated but then calmed down, and I had asked him to reach out and call a show. He made a post, and sorry, could you tell me what the post said, because I don't want to misquote it or take you out of context.
Oh, it's fine. It was Canoe Reeves, okay, so it's with a bunch of pistols aimed at him, and all it was to, and you know, it's just typo. It says to be white is now a crime.
Okay, so that's what I remember. What I meant to ask you. Why is it?
And I hope y'all can understand me, man. My accent's different. You know, I'm from the South. South is different. So. Oh
yeah, you're good. We can totally understand you.
Just about. I hope you can understand my wacky English accent. So.
Oh yes, absolutely. English accent is awesome, man. Awesome.
So why? What I meant to ask you is, why is it? Do you feel that way?
Oh, so sorry. Can I just check that? So this is a cartoon that was suggesting that it's like a crime to be white. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. So it was essentially there was
basically
Keanu Reeves in the center, and a bunch of guns around him, kind of inferring that it's more difficult to be white than anything else. Is that accurate, Jonathan?
Yeah, along those lines. I mean, it's not, you know, adamant as far as being white is not the most, I'm trying to look for the word here. Being white is not the most insignificant person you could be, but it's just, you know, let me slow down a little bit.
Sure.
The political context that we're in now with everything going on, it's just like all of a sudden that everyone's jumped on the bandwagon that, you know, to be white now is you're racist, you're supremacist, you're domestic terrorist. And it's just escalating to the point that eventually it's going to be almost a crime to be white. That's basically the point of the satirical cartoon.
So I've heard people saying similar things to like what you're saying, though as a white person, I've never felt that I've been called any of those things. Like I've heard people say, you know, white people participate in society which is structured in a way that advantages white people over people of other races, which I think, well, for me, I think that sounds right from my experiences and from what I've seen. And I think that maybe sometimes people feel like they're being told just by being white they're being racist, and I don't feel like I've ever personally been called racist just for being white, or I've certainly never been called a terrorist. Do you feel like that's an experience you've actually had, or is that like something that your friends have had, or just something that you've seen on the news? Or
well, my job is I do street photography, so I'm on the streets a lot. Okay, so I mingle with all different types of people, all different races. So lately, and I'm sure you're aware of the politics of U.S.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You know, yeah, you got to be. So since January 6th, there's been this radical shift towards the old America and the new America, basically, is what I see it as. So they look at whites who kind of have the old tradition. All they want to do is be free. They don't want government impeding in everything they do. So those are the people that's being pushed into this racist aspect. When, if you really look at it, and Ethan is the one I really wanted to have the conversation with, basically on this, because you say you were a Republican.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know how the Republican stronghold is. Okay, so they're saying that, 75, 80% of whites in this country are racist. Okay, and by no means do I agree with that. By no means, and I don't think you do either.
So no, and to kind of touch base on what you said, I know exactly how you feel, only because growing up, I should say in my mid-20s, that's when I started to feel that way. And I have since changed my position, because what I found was there is a small chunk of, we'll just call I don't like lumping people together, but there is
Right,
a small group of the left, and it's a very minuscule portion that does like to rip apart anything you have to say and just look at the negative and try and tear you down. But it's such a small portion. And unfortunately, what I noticed was right-leaning media would take that small portion of this population and paint it as, hey, this is the whole left. They're all coming after you. They want to tear you down. They want the government to control everything you do. And for me, once I started to recognize that I was being manipulated by the media essentially to tear us apart, my views started to change. Especially like when I started to talk with more Black individuals and more people from the LGBTQI community, I started to learn like it wasn't as, for me, as hard as I thought it was. And Katy can attest to this. Like her human rights are at stake. You and I have, in my opinion, a big advantage because we don't have the struggles that other people have to go to. We weren't, like the Black community, we weren't slaves since, for all of history, or for all of American history. We've had it pretty easy going. And I don't know where I was going with that. My brain trailed off.
That's odd.
So I've got
the conversation should be, especially with Katy over in England, especially the LGBTQ. I'm not real familiar with those movements at all, because I just, that's just not my circle. But
that's cool.
Do you understand what I'm saying, Katy?
Yeah. So I've got one sort of comment on. You mentioned that like some people say like, oh, most people are racist, and I guess that with lots of these like descriptions like racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, I think it's worth sort of like thinking about what these words mean. And if by like malicious, vindictive hatred, like if you say, there's this person and they absolutely hate women, or they absolutely hate, people of other races, then that's a very extreme version. So you would definitely call someone like that a racist, obviously. But I think when we're talking about racism and sexism and stuff, or at least how I use the words, I also mean people who have like an irrational prejudice, and that doesn't have to be malicious. So for example, if I thought that like all gay men were like weak and couldn't, do manly things, and, that they were like pathetic or something, I might think that because I grew up being told that, and I might be like, as I thought that since as a child. But that wouldn't mean that it was hatred. That wouldn't make me a malicious, vindictive person. But it would still be an irrational, kind of not very fair thing for me to believe. And if someone said to me, oh, well, that's homophobic, I might think, well, I don't hate gay people. That's ridiculous. You're calling me this name and like, go away. But they would be right, because I'm not hateful. I am still kind of believing something that's kind of rubbish and harmful for them. And I think when people have pointed out something I've said in the past, that's that's ableist or that's sexist or something, it can be easy to take offense and be like, gosh, they're calling me a horrible person. But actually, I think it's more a chance for me to hear what they're saying and think, oh, is this perception I have rational? Is this something that I know is based on statistics and evidence and from meeting thousands of people like this? Or is it just some cultural nonsense that I've picked up? And so if we just use this kind of definition for racist that can mean hateful people, but usually means ignorant people, then lots of people probably are a little bit racist in certain aspects because, you know, society does kind of stereotype people. And I guess that might be the difference that you hear when they say lots of people are racist.
I think my main issue is what I see here in this country at this point in time is that, let's just touch on what you talked about as far as rights. Okay. So in the US, we're all free here. You can say what you want to say. It should not offend you. If it does offend you, it's just words. It's no one acting out. So if you paint someone as racist and you talk about a racist, if they're racist towards homophobic people or gays or lesbians or whatever, if they're racist towards those people or blacks, they don't like blacks, they're racist towards blacks, they will not live with blacks. A racist will not live with them. They will not shop with them. They will not dine with them. That is a racist. And they've taken racist, the perspective of it, and just painted it with a broad stroke of a brush. And most of the people here are not racist. They may be prejudiced because that's how they're raised or that's their beliefs.
That's kind of what I was going for, yeah. So I guess if there are some people who are, say, prejudiced against people of certain races,
right. And there's always going to be people who are racist. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to speak over you, but you're never going to get prejudice out of every person. And if you let government start taking control and start making laws to where people have to do this, then how are you free anymore?
Well,
none of us will be free.
How were the people who are being prejudiced against free in the first place? So this is something that I guess when you think about huge groups of people, like if it's talking about men and women, like there are so many women and there's so many men that if one place decided that it wasn't going to serve women, then it would just go bust because everyone, you know, knows women would just shop somewhere else and they just wouldn't survive. But if they were targeting a much smaller group, like trans people, which I'm a member of, then if they said we're not going to serve trans people, then 99.9% of people would still, like, most people don't even know a trans person.
I understand what you're saying.
And so then all that would mean is that I just
up there, but I don't see anyone just saying, okay, you're trans and we're not going to let you in this restaurant.
But I guess that originally they used to say that about Black people and Irish people and stuff. And the only reason they don't anymore, well, culture has progressed, but also the laws have made it illegal for you to say, my restaurant doesn't serve Black people. And I think, like, you can worry about your freedom, that's a valid concern to have. But I do think a law saying you're not allowed to say no Black people in my restaurant, I think that's like, you could say that's taking some freedom, but the freedom it's taking is giving so much more freedom to the Black people who are being targeted by that. It's like a worthwhile trade-off because you don't really lose anything. Like, technically you lose some freedom to make a certain choice, but that choice is terrible. And like the little bit of freedom that you lose is such a big gain for millions of people that I feel like it's a worthwhile trade-off, because otherwise the people with all the power have all the freedom and everyone else has no freedom. And the laws are just trying to balance it.
So
I see where you're going with the laws. They're trying to balance it, but where does it end? Because they're not just balancing it, they're forcefully doing it. So, I mean, a lot of people use slavery. Slavery happened in this country. I've never owned a slave. My family's never owned a slave. My family's family was poor as dirt. They never owned a slave. Okay. So, they had to have laws to do away with that terrible period of time. Okay. But that terrible period of time is done now. It's done. So you don't need laws to say, look, Black people can't come in this restaurant anymore, because no one's going to tell a black man, you can't come in my restaurant and eat.
But people do. There are, there are people who you would describe as like real racists. You know, there are some real proper racists, and they will still do that. And they might make their own little communities, or they might get in charge of a town somewhere, and then all the black people living in that town will have a terrible life. You know, there are always going to be racists.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think about like the KKK.
There's always going to be racist. Go ahead, Ethan.
Oh, sorry. So the KKK went through a phase of declining, and last time I checked, unfortunately, they seem to be on the rise again. So there is still like pure hatred by some people, and they would, if they had the ability, would stop black people from, you know, eating in their restaurants. And it's hard to believe that you look on TV, you don't really see it that often, but it does. Unfortunately, it happens. Like, there are some terrible people out there that genuinely want to oppress others and think other races are below them. So I think we still do need those laws in place. But additionally, I think an important distinction to make is right now, you and I have the freedom to say what we want. So for example, I could right now, which I would never, I could say the N-word publicly. I will not get arrested for that. I won't even get in any trouble by the law. My video will get taken down, and I'll suffer the social repercussions of that. But
yeah, I'll hang up straight away.
I mean, I would never say that. But it's still not illegal. Like, we still have freedom of speech. We just don't necessarily have freedom of speech without social consequences. Additionally, like, I have a regular full-time job. The company, if they see me publicly say something like that, they should have the freedom to be able to terminate me immediately if I act out like that against the company's best interest.
But that's no longer freedom of speech. It's just words. It does not mean that you actually mean it. If I was to use the N word, and I have lots of black friends, I don't use the N word. But if I did, it's my right to speak how I want to speak. It's not actions. It's just words. You know,
but then they can speak how they can speak too. They can speak back, can't they? That's like a consequence.
And the reason I get at this, if you're trying to make it a law where you can't speak certain things, and like he says, the platforms that we're on, as far as social media, they will wipe you out in a heartbeat. If you say something that is against their narrative, that they deem illegal. And this is changing day by day. It's getting worse and worse. It's not just going to be for black people. It's going to be for things, if you disagree with what their narrative or their agenda is, eventually you will be deplatformed. So there has got to be a line drawn. If not, we're all going to lose our right to speak, and none of us could even have this conversation together anymore because we won't be able to. That is the reason I say what I say.
So let me ask you this. If, let's say right now you own a restaurant, and you have black employees, and I come inside and I start just shouting the N-word at them, should you have the freedom as a business owner to ask me to leave?
Absolutely. Yes. It's my business. That is my private property by me owning that business. And I can't ask that customer to leave. And I can't also ask that customer to never return.
Exactly.
It's private property once you own a business.
That's what Twitter.
I don't want that customer base. You know what I mean? There's always going to be racism. And what I'm trying to tell you is racism is on both sides. We have a double standard in this country right now. Whites can't say certain things without being deplatformed or censored or just.
You can't say racist.
You know, like you let go from your job. But there's also people on the other side who are saying very derogatory things towards whites. It's a double standard. There's no.
But it's worth. I think with these
platforming them.
With these like double standards that you're talking about, you're treating it as if like these groups are equal in the power dynamic. You know, if a group of black people did say something about me as a white person, and they said some slur, or they said, blah, Katy's white and therefore she's terrible. Like, that doesn't affect me in the same way as if we were all doing that about them, because we don't have the social systematic power stacked against us in the way that they do. We don't have centuries of oppression. We don't have centuries of oppression that history that they do have, and it does affect the power dynamics. So if we were to pretend that everything was equal, then it might be double standards.
I can't agree with you though, because at one time, yes, is there systematic racism within the police departments in this country? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've never.
So it just doesn't affect me.
Politicians in this country, period, because all of them are deceitful. Every single one of them. And all it is about power. But the thing is, they are using race to divide us. We are past the point of all of that slavery that y'all are talking about. It's gone. Everybody's free. We had an African American president for 8 years.
So like you say,
that much racism. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, like you say, there is systemic racism in the police force, and what that means is we have it too in the UK. So in the UK, it's different, but we definitely have it in the UK, and it means that every single one of my black friends, all of them, have been that I've talked to, that I've asked about this. Sorry, or all of several black people that I know closely who I've talked to about this have been just stopped by the police for no reason, and I've never had that. And so just those little things, it's just a constant reminder that in this country, even if the laws might say we're equal, even if slavery ended how many hundred years ago, you're not being treated the same. And that is oppression, and it can really affect how people see things. And it means that when they say, if allegedly someone does say something about me as a white person, it just doesn't carry any weight, because I know that the police aren't going to randomly stop me. I know that if I did get in trouble with the police, they would believe me instantly, because everyone listens to white women, and it's just there's this kind of context constantly surrounding so many actions.
I don't know what it's like where you live, but where I live, it don't matter what fucking color you are. The police gonna fuck with you if anybody says anything about you. If you look suspicious, they're fucking with you.
But they are more likely to think that black people look suspicious.
Over here in the U.S.
They are, yes. Your police are a bit more intense than ours, but it's even in both our countries.
They're out of control. They're militarized over here, and they don't give a damn what color you are. I mean, black
they do though.
But you know why? It comes down to the haves and the have-nots.
Yes,
that's basically what it comes down to. How many police do you see fucking with the wealthy African Americans in this country? It all comes down to money.
It does, and it's worth pointing out.
The poor class areas are where the police congregate in this country. I can walk out my door and prove it to you. Helicopters are flying right now.
We're not arguing that.
One thing I would point out there, I do agree that for sure they'll target, they go after the poor people, and rich people can do what they want, and it's terrible. And in America, if you're a billionaire, you're just above the law. Exactly. However, yes, for sure.
In this country, and your country too, if we as a people, all of us together, decided that the wealth was the problem, if we had better wages, if we had better money, all of us won't have these problems with the police.
So I just
don't have people who want to do what they do, though. There's still people out here that's doing drugs and all that stuff. I'm not getting that. But the thing is, if you're using the media, and then you're using your government, and then you're using the police powers up underneath the government to pointedly target an entire race of people and say they're all racist.
Do you mind if I make a point about what you were saying?
All of us are going to lose.
Sorry. Do you mind if I just make a point about one of the things you...
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I totally agree that if you're rich, you're above the law, and if you're poor, then they're going to target you. But one thing that's worth pointing out is that most of the wealth that people have, in their families and stuff, is inherited. You inherit like your house is passed on, how hard your parents worked. You know, I'm sure your parents worked very hard to get you to where you were today, and you're working very hard for where your children are. You know, you want the best for your children. And one thing that is worth noticing is that hundreds of years ago, Black people started with absolutely nothing because they were freed as slaves, but they didn't have land, they didn't have inherited wealth, they didn't have hundreds of years of freedom behind them. And so when you move on another 100 years, for sure, they've built up generational wealth and they've passed on to their children. And so have all the white people. But the white people started with, just on average, not all of them, obviously, but on average, they had just so much more. And now 200 years on, 300 years on, I'm not sure what the date, how long it's been, but it means that for sure the poor people have it worse, and there are white people with nothing and there are rich Black people. But on average, if you're Black, you're more likely to be poor, and you know the poorest areas are more likely to be not white areas. And you end up with these like congregations where the poorest areas, it's not like a mix, it's like all or mainly Black people. And so the police then go there and target them. And for sure, they're targeting poor people, but it's all mixed in, and the, you know, race and wealth aren't so easily separated. And I think that's just worth noting in this whole complex mix. Like it's not an even playing field.
Well, and also, Jonathan, I think there's a lot of points we agree on. Like, we agree that people, sorry, I shouldn't say we agree. Do you agree that people deserve a more livable wage than what they're currently earning?
Absolutely.
And that, for instance, police are overly brutal and overly militarized.
Absolutely.
And that, like, we as Americans don't need necessarily government control, but we need more financial aid and help from our government.
Absolutely. And we need dialogue.
Yes,
you know, if you
like
look at
this
the COVID thing, and it's not just being used in this country, the virus. It's being used in England. It's being used in the United Kingdom. Every country is using this virus to separate us and just really do totalitarian control. But they're using, in this country, they're using politics. They're using race. They're using wealth. They're using left wing, right wing, and they're dividing us. And they're also using the virus to separate us. So there's no dialogue. You can't even talk to nobody anymore because you got to stay 6 foot apart. We need dialogue in this country to get anything.
You need more call-in shows like this.
I mean, honestly, like, Jonathan, this is why, because I know, like, usually I'm more calm in like Facebook chats, but I was actually really crabby the past couple of days. Like, my anxiety's been up. So my first comment towards you was actually a bit snippy, but that's why
that's what it's about. It's freedom of speech, man. You can get on there and call me anything you want to. That's right. That's what we need is dialogue, man.
But that's why, like, I was like, all right, you know what? I got to back away. And I switched to like, hey, call the show. I'm like, because to me, I agree with you 100%. We're going to accomplish way more if we just sit down and talk to each other. And right now, the media is really good at ripping us apart and getting us to fight and hate each other. And if we actually took the time to band together, we could make a legitimate change. I just wish we
could make a legitimate change in this country. And the easiest way to deal with race, quit talking about it. Quit talking about it. You're a man, I'm a man. I don't care what.
But the problems won't go away if you just stop talking about them.
It doesn't matter if you're gay. Fine, I don't care if you're gay. I'm not gay.
But see,
but the police were targeting and killing Black people at a much higher rate than white people, and Black people were trying to talk about it. And if you just say, I don't want to talk about it, then you're just saying to them, you've just got to deal with having a worse life. And they deserve to be able to speak up about their problems. And really, we should listen, because, you know, how are we going to, I wouldn't even know, if it weren't for Black people speaking up, I wouldn't know about the systematic racism in the police force in the USA. And I want that to be fixed. I want it to go away. So in order to do that, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to Ethan. And we all need to talk about it. and be like, well, racism is terrible and it's a real thing and it happens today, so let's destroy it.
Yep. To give you, let me ask
you. The
you.
thing about racism is, go ahead, Eve.
You and I can't assume. Are you straight like me?
Yes, I'm straight. I'm okay.
So you and I have never really had the struggle of trying to, how do I word this? We don't know what it's like to be gay. And for you and I, it's very easy to be like, dude, who cares? Like, because you and I, if someone wants to be gay, we don't care, let them. But the problem is there are so many people who don't think like you and I. There are people that fight to not only restrict the rights of gay and other people, but they want their businesses to be able to refuse people of the LGBTQ community. And so you and I aren't having that same struggle. We're not walking into a place and worried about not getting service because we're straight. That just doesn't happen. But this other group of people does have that happen.
Gay people have only been allowed to get married in the USA for 6 years. So like there are no gay marriages in your whole country that are older than 6 years. And quite a lot of straight people's marriages are a lot older than 6 years. So
I actually didn't know that.
Wow. I don't know. That's just not my circle. I don't keep up with it. I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's fine. If you're not part of the problem,
in the country actually say no, you can't come in here because you're gay. I mean, is it something that's
happen?
Is it large? Would you say 90%, 99%, or is it like 10%? If it's like 10% of restaurants, you just boycott them. You don't go there. Simple.
Yeah, but why should you have to deal with that?
Right. And again, it's easy for you and I, but there are people, think about it in the South. I have had people reach out to me.
I live in the South.
I know that's what I'm saying. So like I have had people reach out to me that have gotten kicked out, kids getting kicked out of their homes for being gay. And it's like this shit needs to stop. Like,
where can you go?
Like you and I, in my opinion, it is our job because we have the advantage to stand up and not let these people get oppressed. Like nobody should be kicked out of a restaurant.
But the thing is, like that goes to the parents, okay? So that goes to generational, right? This is not something that's just going to be accepted within weeks or years. It's going to take time. But as the younger population gets older, they're more accepting of it. Eventually, there won't be that anymore. They're going to have to be tough to begin with because some people are still stuck in their ways. If you go, say, let's hypothetically, if you were to go get some Indians from some Amazon tribe or something like that hasn't lived in society like we do. It's grown up in the jungle. And we brought them to our society. We would think they were savage.
They would think we were savage. They probably don't hate gay people.
Over time, they would accept it. It's like it's going to have to be something that goes over time. If someone boycotts you at a restaurant, don't go to that fucking restaurant. Go to another restaurant. Say, fuck you. I ain't got to eat at your restaurant. I ain't got to give you my money. Unless it's a whole bunch. No one's passing a law in the government that says, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, that's what we got to do because if we just use laws to do everything, none of us are going to be free. And I know England's a whole lot less free than we are over here.
Well, there's nowhere in the country that's allowed to say, I'm not going to serve you, whereas maybe there are in the USA. I know that in like several states in the USA, if I moved there and wanted to start a family, I wouldn't be allowed to. It's like against the law or whatever. There's no protections and no one will serve me because no one will allow me to adopt because all of the adoption agencies are Christian and none of them will allow me to. And so I just can't have a family and there are kids that will just go without a parent. And I just think that's completely bullshit. What's the point? Who's free? Who gets freedom from that? Everyone loses. It's just pointless, irrational prejudice that makes my life worse. It makes children's lives worse. And it benefits no one. And we could just make a law saying it's illegal to say you're not allowed to have trans people adopt. Huh?
That's what I'm getting at. How do you change that? Do you take the
just make it against the law?
So that's Oh, sorry.
In the UK, it's against the law for you to say you're not allowed to adopt because you're LGBT, and so now everyone can adopt, and the problem's just solved. And we could just do that in the USA. Like half the US states or something like that have that law already, and some have had it for a long time. You know, some other states could just catch up.
I'm not familiar with that topic, so I can't really debate.
Yeah, well, it's just the same. Like if we just say to someone, you're not allowed to ban someone from your restaurant just because they're black, then no one loses. Like the only people that lose out are hateful racists, and I just don't care about them at all. So
Agreed. So hey, Jonathan.
Yeah, but I mean, how are you going to get rid of all? I mean, you have to really.
I won't get rid of the racists,
okay,
but I'll just get rid of racist restaurants.
People that are racist, okay? Does that affect you? I mean, how do you get rid of them? Do you pass laws until they no longer exist? Do you put them all in chains?
But you can make it less acceptable.
Throughout history of the world, there are going to be racist people. You're not going to pass laws to make people unracist. Laws
when racists, when the law persecutes racists, or persecutes is the wrong word, when the law disagrees with racists, then the racists don't feel very empowered. But if the law says, oh, it's okay to be a racist, then they all feel like justified in doing it. They're not going to change their way. But if their business,
don't know any laws in this country that's okay to be racist. I mean,
no.
I mean, we got freedom of speech. You can say what you want.
You can.
You should be able to say what you want.
But you've got protections for race in every state now. So
yeah, we got protections of freedom.
Hey, sorry to cut you off, Jonathan.
And if we can't speak, then we're not free. Okay.
Sorry to cut you off. This has been a really good call.
This is your show, man.
We do have to move on to the next caller, but I will say I'm really glad you called. I'm glad we were able to have a more civil conversation than what was started on Facebook. So thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Thanks for the call, man. Enjoyed your show. I'm sorry I just talked over y'all. I enjoyed talking to y'all.
No, you're
people
good.
Need to have dialogue. That's the thing. Dialogue. It doesn't matter what people feel or think. It doesn't matter what they say. As long as they're not acting, man, we gotta have dialogue. If not, we're all gonna lose, man. We're all gonna lose in the end.
Well, and it starts with,
blacks were slaves
us
in history,
as you said, talking. So, but thanks again, Jonathan.
Talking and listening.
Yeah,
talking and listening. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
thank you, Jonathan.
I know I didn't listen much. I lost that.
No, you can watch it back. You can watch the video back and listen. So
yeah, I'll send you the link if you like, or I think I sent you the link. So yeah, you're welcome to. The video will be up.
Yeah, that's all right.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, take care, man.
You too.